for those 6 practice problems?
It's so funny. I don't know.
All right. So basically, Chloe, in a nutshell,
Hey.
do you remember when we would go to the unit circle and say, find sine of 30 degrees, which meant look at the y coordinate of the point at 30 degrees? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. Same concept. What am I doing? Pulling the unit circle up. Hold on. Chapter 6.
Just ask yourself.
Yeah, talk about that.
Watch
Alright,
something.
same concept, but instead of tell me the y coordinate of 30 degrees, this time I'm saying, what is sine inverse of 1/2? And you would have to come to the picture and basically find where are all the y values 1/2, right? And then you tell me the angle measure. Now the catch is, see how there's 2? Well, there's a restriction. And that's because if you actually look at the graph of the inverse sine, cosine, tangent, they don't pass the function test. So we have to restrict it. So just a snippet of it will pass the function test. What is sine, y'all? Is sine negative 90 to 90? I think cosine's the easy one, yeah. So sine inverse is only allowed to come from quadrants 4 or 1. And that's because of the restriction. So this tells me then my answer is, that's supposed to change, 30 degrees. Because that's in the appropriate quadrant. Okay. What if I said, what's the sine inverse of negative 1/2? Okay, so sine inverse can come from here. Then you would come down here and say, where is sine negative 1/2 in the correct quadrant? So you would think, oh, it's 330. Can't say 330. Instead, you have to start from 0 degrees and go negative 90 or 290. So instead of saying 330, you just look at what is the reference angle here? 30. So you would say, and it would be negative because you're coming down. So it would be negative 30 degrees would be the correct answer. That's what we learned. All in a nutshell. Okay, so that's a good recap for y'all because I know you've slept since yesterday. Come to this slide right here. This slide is saying, well, that's great. You know how to find the inverse, and you know how to find regular trig, right? It's saying,
what is this?
what if we compose one within the other? Because let's just, let's make this party more fun. I know. All right, so let's look at this. This right here, composition of trig functions. You don't have to write this. I just want you to know what it's similar to. Do y'all remember when we had like f of g? Remember this in college algebra? Okay, that was composition of functions f and g. Okay, now what we're doing is compositions of trig functions. Let's take some notes on this box right here. So first of all, if you take the sine of, meaning composed with, the sine inverse, because those are directly related, you're going to get x. If you take the cosine of cosine inverse, you're going to get x. If you take the tan of tan inverse, you're going to get x. Remember, we do have restrictions. These are the domain window values. I'm going to write them down. These are notes I make to myself. Alright, sine negative 1 to 1, cosine negative 1 to 1, and tangent is anything. Because because tangent, remember, lays on its side and runs both directions. Alright, so let's dive right into practice problems. Look at A. It says simplify each of the following. Whenever you're working these, let's take some notes. Now, the notes we're going to take here and on the second one, maybe. You don't have to take these notes every time. This is me trying to give you notes as you look back on your paper so you'll know where we came up with the answer. I could just come right in here and say, hey, this is the answer. But that's not going to help you when you're doing the practice problems or when you're studying for the test. So let's take some notes. The first is right here. Make a note to do this one first. The innermost one. Remember this little -1 right here. I'm drawing an arrow to that -1, and I'm going to actually make it bold. That little -1 is saying what angle with a cosine value, has a cosine value of √3/2. So you're going to ask what angle has this, and in this case it's not y, x value, because it says cosine. So anytime you see the little -1, you're saying to yourself, what angle has that value? And then whether it's x, y, or y/x comes from what trig function it reads. This says cosine, so that would be x. This is what we practiced yesterday, so let's come over here and let's refresh your memory on what's allowed with cosine. Look at the bottom of your formula sheet. So cosine, this is when I used to make people memorize it. Cosine is a C laying down. It's the only one that's quadrants 1 and 2. The others are the -90 to 90. So from 0 to 90, or you can do 0 to pi. It's up to you. You can write it as pi. You can write it as 90, or not 90, 180. It's up to you. You want to do degrees? If we can.
Oh, we need to calculate it.
All right. So we're going to evaluate this first. I'm going to bring the cosine down. This one. Bringing this one down. All right. Go to your unit circle. What is the angle where cosine is √3/2? It's which one? 30 degrees. I wrote pi/6, but that is the same as 30. So I'm going to make a note over here. I'm going to say note cosine inverse of √3/2 is 30 degrees. That's how this crap changed to 30. I replaced it. I found the value of it. And then now, this is going to feel like you just basically went around the world to come right back at where you started, because you did. And it's because it was cosine of cosine inverse. So that's why this happened. Now, we're right back at what we did last chapter, chapter 6. Go to the unit circle, tell me the x value at 30 degrees. √3/2, and that's the answer. Now, how are you going to do this on the test? It would be nice if you could, make a note to me that you understand that these basically are the same. I would love to see, that you've drawn the diagram. I would love to see that you replaced it with 30, but everybody has a different way of filling that in. Say that one more time. So you have to be careful. So this is sine of sine inverse of 1.8. Now it does say 1.8.
So that'd be radians.
Well, yes, but I was looking for something else. You're right. If it says 1.8, go to your unit circle and find 1.8.
There isn't a. It's not.
Thank
on there.
you. Okay, so I want you to make a note to yourself. This is a decimal, which means ... calculator. Anytime you've got one that is a decimal, then you know we're not working on the unit circle. We're actually letting the calculator evaluate it. So go to your calculator and do this one first. This is what you're going to do first.
It says
And what do you get?
undefined or error.
You get error, you get undefined. Does anyone know why?
Domain.
There it is. So, do you remember how we said we have up here, if you look up here, these are the domain windows of the values allowed. So with sine, the only values allowed are -1 to 1. With cosine, the only values allowed, -1 to 1. Now tangent's free range, anything goes. But let's make a note to ourselves. Undefined because sine inverse has the domain -1 to 1. If you remember from yesterday when we did the little highlighting on the graphs, we said that that graph only ran from -1 to 1. I just bought that, don't break it. Riles.
Thought it was Reese.
No, Riles was playing with it yesterday. I have some at home. All of them broke, so I thought it was. Alright. Go to the next slide. The next slide is saying, let's discuss the special cases, because there's always special case scenarios. Now notice they did switch it this time. This time it's the inverse is on the outside of the regular that's on the inside. And then it does say for all the range of sine inverse, cosine inverse, and tan inverse. Come right here. Let's do a tan problem. So there's several thought processes here, right? Now you should get x, but we're going to prove it. We're going to prove, or x. You should get pi over 6, but we're going to prove how you get it. Start here first. Recall, we already memorized the two tan values.
Isn't this just like 2? Wait, no, this is the 3s. It's root 3 over 3.
Pi over 6 is what in degrees?
30.
30 degrees. And so you can either make a note right here of what the actual point is for 30, but I think there's only 11 of us in here, so I feel like we're all trying to just memorize that tan of 30 is root 3 over 3. Am I right on that? So there's less work involved. So I'm going to make a note. Recall tan 30 is root 3 over 3. If you've got that memorized, you can go ahead and replace tan of pi over 6 with root 3 over 3. Now bring this down. This comes down. And then you got root 3 over 3. If you don't have that memorized, then you would need to find the tan of either 30 or 60, because you wouldn't know which one it was. But I'm telling you, if you can remember that tan of 30 is the one with more 3s, it really helps. And then now we're right back where we were yesterday. So what this is saying, tan inverse. The inverse means what angle has So I can't draw an arrow to that because that's going to get confusing. But you're saying what angle has tan, which means y over x, equal to root 3 over 3. Well, we already know that because we said it's the, what? 30. So it's 30 degrees, or if you were to answer in radians, it's pi over 6. Make sure you're with me. Tyler, get off that. All right, let's try B. Sine inverse of sine of 3 pi over 4.
Just gonna be.
Now you might say we're going to come to 3 pi over 4. Where's 3 pi over 4 on your unit circle?
It's gonna be
What
undefined.
quadrant?
It's gonna be undefined.
Hold on. 3 pi over 4 is where on your unit circle?
The second quadrant.
It's over here. Where does sine inverse allow us to pull from?
90 to 90.
Negative 90 to 90. So you have to be careful when they match like that. Don't just say, oh, it's always whatever's in the parentheses. Because, like, here's an example where, no, that's not the case. All right, so we're going to go about this procedurally. If you'll go about it procedurally, it works every time. What's the procedure? This is the first thing you do, which is, don't get confused. That's back to chapter 6. That's a regular, hey, what's the sine value at 3 pi over 4? That's okay, there's no restrictions. The only one that has restrictions is when it's the little negative 1, okay? So everybody go to your unit circle. What is the sine at 3 pi over 4? Square root 2 over 2. So I'm going to bring this down. And I'm going to write that it's sine inverse of square root 2 over 2. Now, because I got my little negative 1, I'm going to remind myself. So right here, I have a restriction. I'm pulling from negative 90 to 90. This is where you have to be careful. So go to the unit circle. Find where y is root 2 over 2, and then you know, because it's positive, I'm looking in quadrant 1. And tell me, what is the angle measure? 45. Or pi over 4.
Well, what? I thought it was undefined.
Huh?
I thought it was undefined. Wait a second.
That was because the decimal was 1.8, which is out of our domain restriction. Why would it be undefined?
Yeah.
Oh,
Range is right there.
so what I was saying is this, because this is in quadrant 2, but this is a regular trig function. This is okay. The problem would be that if we ended up with the sine inverse of 3 pi over 4, that's a problem. That has just jumped into a quadrant that sine's not allowed.
Okay.
So, like, if you had that 4 pi over 3, which is more than 1.
Depends on where it is. If it's attached to inverse sine, then that's a problem. If it's attached to regular sine, it's fair game. Try to distinguish chapter 6. Look at what I'm pointing to. This is chapter 6. That's okay. We didn't have restrictions in chapter 6. This is the new stuff. Hold up. Wait a minute. Look at your formula sheet. You have restrictions. Let's go to the bottom. Now let's mix it up. Notice that this is not sine of sine inverse. They don't match.
It's sine.
But it's the same. It's the same concept. It's just now you got to be careful. Am I looking at y? Am I looking at x? Am I looking at y over x? So this is the innermost. Is right here. We're going to do this first. Tan inverse of negative 1. Don't let the negative 1 throw you off. That meant y got divided by x to give me a -1. What's the only way to divide two things and get a 1 at all? They have to match, right? And then if they're -1, then one's positive, one's negative. All right, so there's a lot of thinking here. Let's take some notes. Draw an arrow to that -1. What angle gives tan, which is y over x, equal to -1?
It's going to be 7 pi over 4.
So let's think about, now we got to think of our tan, what is it, restriction. Tan is the one that runs
because the restrictions.
here
Because the inverse.
to here. Open on the,
It goes that way.
tan runs -90 to 90.
Yeah.
If we're dividing two numbers that match and we're getting negative, then we're clearly in quadrant 4. So go to your unit circle.
It's 7 pi over 4.
Okay, it is 7 pi over 4, but
Wait, no, it's -45.
there it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
I was going back there.
That was it. All
What
right,
is it?
so the thought process is this. Let me help if anyone's not there yet. So this is the tangent restriction. Granted, this would be an open circle, and that's an open, but that doesn't bother me here. I need to know where I'm dividing y over x, and I'm getting -1. Well, clearly it's right here. That's where you would divide those and get a -1. So you're looking at it, let's stick to degrees for right now if you want to. You got 315, but we said yesterday you should not have any answers coming from inverse in the 300s. So you look up here and you ask yourself, this is symmetrical. This is the middle one. So this is the middle one. So the reference angle would be -45 degrees.
Ooh, tubby.
All right.
Dude, it's only 10.
So so I'm going to bring this down. Sine of -45 degrees. What do you get? Now, this is chapter 6. I just said now 3 times, sorry. This is chapter 6.
Now.
Tell me the y value at -45.
-√2 over 2.
Yep, that's it.
Now,
Sounds
child.
like cat's meowing.
Sine pi over 2 is y. So the
All right, let's
cosine,
do this one.
the inverse cosine. 1.
We're going to do the innermost one first. You can probably do this one in your head because pi over 2 is, which, I mean, I wouldn't encourage you to do it in your head. I'd encourage you to maybe try it in your head and then go to your unit circle and confirm you're on the right track. But sine of pi over 2 is telling me what's the y value at 90. This is chapter 6. I'm going to bring this down. Go to 90. What's the y value? 1. Now, what's the angle? Be careful, this is -1 here, which means tell me the angle. What is the angle that has an x value of 1?
0.
Now, this is cosine inverse. Cosine inverse is the one that lays on its side.
0.
Not its side, what is it? Like lays down.
Why are you looking at him like
This is cosine inverse.
that? Did you say it? No, you're like, hey.
Which one has an x value of 1?
Stop. 0.
Here,
0. Why are you looking at me like that?
That was difficult.
You have 6 practice problems, and then we are done with
6?
7-4. Go do the
Oh, that's
6
light.
practice problems on the next slide, just to make sure you know how to do this. And then you can work on My Math Lab.
Oh, 2.99. Well, 0.299.
We did the test on paper,
What?
which was a nice
You know the right
break
side on the
from
left
my
side?
math lab. I do need to go look, actually, now that we're talking about it, I need to go look and see if there's any that need to be removed.
I think 7 and 13 need to.
Okay, I'll look. What?
Why did you take my word for it?
Going through 7.5.
Yeah, it's 0.29.
I would rather go ahead and, are y'all okay with this? Today's Tuesday. I would rather go ahead and start 7.5 tomorrow. 7.5 I think takes 2 days.
That's chill.
And then that way we have the days to review, ask questions, 7.4, 7.5 homework.
So
Yeah.
7-5, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah. And then the test is going to be either Wednesday or Thursday next week. You have Friday off. Oh, yeah, we all do. Yeah, next week, not this Friday. This Friday's a full week.
Wah, wah. 10?
Yes.
If it's literally 0.299 repeating, can I just put point?
0.299. Well, do you realize what 0.299?
I didn't get 0.299.
Did you get 0.3?
I got
You should get 0.3.
So I was right.
I didn't get 0.3 straight.
For some reason,
Look.
there's
I did the first one.
there might be the calculator.
I got 0.3.
Now, Taylor, stop. Put what you got for the inverse sine right there in
Oh,
sine.
type it in together. Look, these are the same thing. And that 0.3 is within the restriction limits, so that's okay. Green light. Brody, don't get mad, but I'm about to kick you out of my seat.
Well, can I finish practice? I'm just get up.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, that's chill. Like,
For E8, for negative, I would for is that just negative?
Yes. I know. I'm struggling. It falls apart, so otherwise I'd lift it.
E9 is 1. Yeah,
Don't tell him that. Make him work.
I thought you were doing the right side.
I thought you were doing the right side.
No, I said
Y'all are not dividing and conquering. You're doing both sides.